All right, Mallory.
Stop it. I don't like that.
Let's
I don't like it.
let's dive in to the Brazos Valley. So, if
What
you
if I don't
are,
want to? What if I just got up and walked out? Because that is not nice.
well, then people would be stuck just staring at my face because I can talk. Like there just won't be a graphic up before me.
I'm gonna take
So,
your mic off.
because we haven't done this, here it is, the 64th edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. When you start to flip through it, you'll get to these high school pages, and we've got rankings. We have our preseason rankings where we rank the top 25 in each classification from 5A down to 1A, and then in 6A, because the division split does not happen until the postseason, we rank the top 50. So we're going to go through and show you which teams in the Brazos Valley are ranked in our preseason Dave Campbell's Texas Football rankings, the official rankings of the Associated Press. We start off in 5A Division 1, coming in at number 3. How about them Cougars? Talking about College Station, and what a roller coaster of a ride that was last year. Flashback, go back in your Wayback Machine. And Marquise Collins, the superstar going into his senior year running back, gets hurt.
Mm-hmm. That was even before the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in preseason. And I don't know if it was in summer workouts or if it was in fall camp or like two-a-days. I think it was two-a-days. Maybe it was. I don't know. But we knew for a fact before the season started that they were toast, as we thought.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way. That's the superstar. They lost Jet Huff. They lost their head coach in Steve Huff. There's no way. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, in enters Aiden Martinez-Brown. But no, for real, then they go, so we think, okay, maybe we'll see. Then they go into week 1, 52-27 loss against Lovejoy. And we're going, oh my God. There goes, as they were number 1, I think, going into last year. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, there they go. Done. Toasted. Trash. Goodbye. And then it enters Aiden Martinez-Brown. College Station, after we completely buried them after week 1, completely rode off all the way to AT&T Stadium. So they drop one against Georgetown in late October, which was just kind of a fumble on their part, and then they make it all the way, play Aledo in the state championship, get embarrassed in the state championship, but regardless, they made it back at the hands of what fundamentally was an unbelievable sophomore running back. So he is back for his junior season. Arrington Maiden is back for his senior year, the quarterback that had over 2,000 passing yards. So what I'm saying is College Station ranked very highly. We're not dropping them this year just because one player got hurt. Going to be young on the offensive line, and I think the secondary, which is not something that they usually have to worry about. Usually College Station is very fundamentally sound. Mm-hmm. On the offensive line, so that'll be interesting, but all the skill players are back, so we think very highly of College Station. Moving down to the 5A Division 2 ranks, this is where you'll find the number 12th ranked Brenham Cubs. Danny Youngs in his second season. They lost to eventual state finalist PNG 38-28 in the regional semifinals. They were hit really hard by graduation this year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They do return 6 starters on defense. So I think that if the defense can carry them for the first couple of games and they can grow on the offense, you can expect good things from the Brenham Cubs. I feel like they are definitely the favorite in their district. It'll be interesting looking past that, though, as they have to go through that just tumultuous region 3 there with Fort Bend Marshall and PNG, who, again, they would love to have a revenge game on heading into this year. Moving down to 4A Division 2, it is the Mustangs out of Buckyville, Madisonville, if you will.
Correct.
They fell 60-21 last year in the regional semifinals to Mallory's beloved Silsbee Tigers.
Let's go.
Silsbee Tigers, they got the full Draylon Miller experience.
They sure did.
But man, they've got All-State wide receiver Lorenzo Johnson coming back. And then on top of him coming back, almost all the rest of the skill players are back this year. They will need an offensive line to grow up really quickly if they're going to be able to utilize those skill players, but don't have much concern for that. They come in the last preseason ranked team in preseason number 25 there in for a Division 2. Moving on down, 3A Division 1. You heard of them before? The Lions of Franklin. They come in.
Mafia.
Slot T Mafia, injected into my veins forever and always. The Franklin Lions, back-to-back 16-0 seasons there under head coach Mark Fannin. And Nicole brought up a good point. He's only got 3 losses in his 3 years. He's 44-3. 44-3 at Franklin.
That's pretty good. That's not bad.
Insane.
One of those is a state championship loss, correct?
Yes,
3 years ago?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But regardless, back-to-back 2-time state championships. They have not lost a game, I guess, since 2020.
That's pretty good.
Wow. So last year, Franklin is so funny for me because last year we went in and guess who we were talking about? Bryson Washington. We talked about Bryson Washington and the unbelievable show he put on in the 2021 state championship, the just insane year that he has as a junior, and we were looking at it going, oh my gosh, this guy, once he put the state on notice, still has another year. Now, Bryson Washington still did his thing last year. He is truly an exceptional player, incredibly fun to watch, one of my favorite players to watch since I've been covering Texas high school football for Dave Campbell's. But how about sophomore Jaden Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
This was the insane thing for me. I mean, over 2,200 yards on the ground, 32 touchdowns last year. But we knew Jaden Jackson was special, and we were like, okay, great. He's going to play second fiddle to Bryson Washington. It's going to be great. I don't remember if you remember sitting there talking with me at the state championship, but we are sitting there watching it, and we're looking around, and we're going, we think that Bryson Washington is incredibly talented, but this sophomore is making him look like his number 2 right now.
Well, he's huge too. I mean, I'll talk more about him later when we really dive into some of these players around the area. But like, he's got great size already, and he's going to be a junior.
Yeah. So he might be able to drive at this point. He might have had his 16th birthday.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more, but Franklin is going to be incredible. They're bringing back Jaden Jackson, only going to be a junior this year. The defense looks great. Brandon Smith on the defensive line is back from injury, which is going to be a huge get for them. And then linebackers Braden Urie and Colby Smith are both back. I think that the experience for this team, because still so many of these guys are young, the experience is just impalpable. Mm-hmm. So incredibly excited to watch them. Trickling down to these smaller classifications now. Here we go down in 2A Division 1 out of District 12. It is number 7 rather in Centerville. They went 10-3 last year, but 10-3 is great. Get this, their only losses were to Crawford, a 1-point loss to Mart, and Timpson. They got Terry Bussied in the regional semifinal.
Which makes sense. I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, that's crazy to play that steep of a schedule and to lose to those 3 programs, Crawford, Mart by 1 point, and Timpson in a regional semifinal.
Yeah.
That's a really, really impressive feat considering they were young last year.
Yeah, they're bringing back pretty much everybody on both sides of the ball too, so they're only on the trajectory.
Yeah, they've had 5 playoff wins in the past 2 years, and I think they were a little bit of a year early last year. Mm-hmm. So they run that multiple wing, and then I think the big one for them is that they've got Andrew Newman back at running back, co-district offensive player of the year down there in District 12. He was right on the cusp of 1,000 yards last year. They're going to have to fill some spots in the defense, but keep an eye on Centerville because, like we said, I think they were a little bit early last year. That experience is really going to come back if the defense can kind of reload a little bit, but the offense should be humming with no problem. Moving on down to 2A Division 1, a pair of top 10 ranked contenders. You heard Nicole talk about them in the number 5 ranked Bremond Tigers coming out of District 13, fell to Falls City in a bye district last year, went 8-3. We expect big things from Bremond this year. Braylon Wortham is back at again, why I love small school ball. Quarterback and defensive end, Braylon
What a
Wortham
duo, man.
is
What a
back.
duo.
As a sophomore, he had 1,600 yards, 26 touchdowns rushing, truly a dual threat quarterback. And the reason that we have such high expectations for Bremond is because they legitimately bring back basically their entire team with a year's more of experience, which is funny because they did fall in the bi-district round. But if you go back, much like how we had ridden off College Station in the early part of the year, they lost to Falls City. We rode off the Beavers so early.
Yeah.
I mean, they had like 3 games where it was like, what in the world is happening down there? And then they did that thing where they turned on the jets and started blowing over people for the rest of the year. So a hard-fought loss there to Falls City, but we expect big things out of Bremond. They are a little small, but very fast, so watch out. Moving on now down to number 9. That'll be the Burton Panthers out of District 14 down there. They went 13-1 last year, lost to Mart in the state semifinals 41-14. Really close games all the way until then. I mean, an undefeated record until the state semifinals. Not something you can complain about. They will be returning 8 starters on their offense, 6 starters on their defense. Incredibly, here's the key for Burton here. Incredibly experienced returning rushing game and incredibly experienced returning offensive line. Expect this to be a big ground and pound. That's kind of where the difference between Bremond and Burton are. Bremond, small and fast. Burton, they're going to punch you in the mouth.
Hard-nosed hitting team.
They will definitely punch you in the mouth. And then 3-year starter Colby Black back to lead the defense there at linebacker. He's been a key staple for that Burton defense for a couple of years now. So excited to see what they do. And then finally, rounding it out there in 1A Division 2, we stretch all the way from the largest classification in the Brazos Valley in 6A down to the smallest 6-man classification in 1A Division 2, and it is number 10, Oakwood. They went 11-3 last season, lost to Lorain in the state semifinals, but expecting to make another long playoff run down there in the UIL's smallest classification. So, obviously, the handful of other teams that we did not mention, there are 24 teams in the Brazos Valley region, one of which being Bryan, like she mentioned, and that's who Nicole primarily covers, and she thinks that good things on their offensive or on their defensive side of the ball. Same thing goes for Bryan Rudder, a couple of different really big programs down there. But out of all of those are the preseason ranked teams, and that's a lot, to be honest with you. I mean, out of one of the smallest regions in the state of Texas to have that much power. And what I find interesting about it is it's not just like, oh, it's all power at the top or it's all power at the bottom. You've got a legitimate contender in almost every classification.
Yeah, it's very even. I was looking through all of the regions last night just kind of as a refresher, and I was like, dang, this is a really, really small region. I wish we could have gone back and looked at the percentage because of, ranked teams versus how many teams are actually in the region, because it'll be a high percentage.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, there's not many teams really in that region, but a high number of ranked teams.
Yeah, some very, very good talent, especially, man, if you're a fan of hard-nosed hitting football and some big running back energy, the Brazos Valley is where you want to stay. Which leads us directly into talking about some of those players that maybe if you're not interested in the region, but you like the recruiting side of stuff, we head over to Mallory with more.
Stop it.
I had to do it one more time. We head over to Mallory Hartley with a breakdown on top recruits to watch for.
Maybe. If you call me Mallory again, I'm getting up and I'm leaving here. Anyways, let's get into
it just to see if she's for real.
Let's get into it. We'll start off in the big dogs, the 6A ranks. You heard Nicole talk about him already, but I'm going to talk about him some more because he is a star-studded wide receiver. Out of Bryan, it's Tyson Turner. He's entering his senior season at Bryan High School, standing at 6'2", weighing 190 pounds, which is a really, really good frame for a wide receiver. As a junior, Turner recorded 34 receptions for 665 yards and 13 touchdowns, and that was just through 10 regular season games. He's already committed to Texas Tech. He did that, I think, back in June of this year. Man, joining an already strong wide receiver unit out there in Lubbock. He really is a dynamic athlete who has no problem separating himself from defenders. If you don't believe me, just watch his huddle. It's all over that. And not only is he a speedster? But Turner actually placed third as a junior at the May 2023 Texas 6A high jump finals. So not only does he have the speed, but he's got that really high vertical as well, which obviously makes him just a dynamic wide receiver all around. Moving on down to College Station, defensive back Tony Hamilton. We have already talked about the running back factory over there, but let's switch sides here and talk about the defense. He's on our 5A preseason all-state team as a defensive back. As a junior, he recorded 131 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 4 interceptions. He's just a guy that can perform really, really well under pressure. And one of the highlights that I saw from him when I was looking at his huddle tape earlier was the game against A&M Consolidated last year. That was such a highly anticipated game, I think, for us. And it was a really, really fun game to watch because we truly didn't know what College Station, like you said, was going to be without Marquise Collins in the running game. College Station ended up winning that game 38-28, I believe. But on A&M Consolidated's last drive, I believe it was, Hamilton picked off the quarterback's pass. I don't remember what A&M Consolidated's quarterback was, but he's just a guy that he can perform very, very well under pressure, and I think that is a perfect example of that. He performs at a high level in very key moments in games, and he's just a guy that you can rely on. He's a playmaker. He's a guy that you can rely on in any type of situation there in the defense. He's got an offer from Texas State and Northwestern State as of right now, but I have a feeling that those offers are probably going to be flooding in once the season starts.
Oh, yeah, and Coach Pryor is a very, very large advocate for Tony Hamilton in a lot of different ways. He says he's his best all-around player, and he said, but here's the big thing that sticks out to me. He's going to take on a greater leadership and two-way role, and then he put in all caps physical.
Yes.
So we knew the physical part, but to hear that you're able to take on a leadership role in both sides of the ball, that's really big. They've got something really special there in Tony Hamilton.
Agreed. Moving on down, let's talk about Brenham linebacker Cade Moore, and you kind of heard Nicole talk about it a little bit. This defense is going to be very, very good. Offense is probably a little bit young, but this team is going to be highlighted by linebacker Cade Moore, that's for sure. He's our 10-5A Division II preseason defensive MVP. He recorded 109 total tackles, 17 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks last season. He's just a guy that can really do it all. He's got a really good frame, 6 foot, 205 pounds, and he's quick. He's a guy that just can do it all. And like I said, this is a very defensive-heavy team. He's just going to be that star down there at the linebacker spot, and he's going to be the leader. He's a senior this year. He's going to be a leader for this team, and I think that they've got a really, really good shot at maybe making it to AT&T Stadium with this defensive-heavy team.
Yeah, just to add to it, he blocked 2 punts last year too. So you talked about, because we see his 6 foot 205 stature, and we think, man, that's just a big old boy. You know, like, he plays very physical. But I think I agree when saying that Cade's like most underrated asset is his speed.
Yeah,
I don't think enough people realize just how quick off the draw he is.
Moving on down, let's talk about Brian Rudder, athlete. Jaquise Martin. He's listed as a wide receiver on 247, but I think he plays a little bit at running back too. So we're labeling him as an athlete. He really stood out at the state 7-on-7 tournament this year. I didn't see him personally, but I definitely saw a lot of tweets about him. And he led Rudder to compete in the championship bracket, the Division I championship bracket that Saturday. They lost in the first round, but he really, really stood out during that tournament. He caught 40 passes last year for 575 yards and 7 touchdowns, while racking up 217 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground last season. He's quick on his feet, and I think just looking through his huddle tape this morning, he's a really good route runner. He's quick, and he's got a lot of speed there. He's quick on his feet. He's got offers from Texas Tech, Nebraska, Arkansas State, and Florida A&M, but it looks like, going through his Twitter, that maybe Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies look a little interested in him. They've got their eye on him. I think he attended one of their camps or something this summer, but Jimbo Fisher's definitely definitely has his eye on this kid.
Yeah, he's something special. Coach Azar will tell you, he said, he's the best football player I've coached in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's special.
That's some high praise. And it would be great to see him stay in College Station, or the BCS area and stick there. I think that if he, I want to say wide receiver, I think he would be the perfect thing for a little slot receiver. I genuinely do. 5'11" stature, 185. I think he's
built more
got,
like a running back, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got the frame to add on a little bit more good way. I don't know if he's big enough to play. I think he could absolutely play running back at Brian Rudder. I don't know if he's got the frame to play it in college. But he
still has another year to grow too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still growing.
And he, like I said, I think he's got the frame to add on a little bit more of that, like the healthy, good weight that you're looking for. But I think that might be what college is like the most about him, is he's kind of on that teetering edge of a lot of different positions, and he's got the skill to play all of those just depending on where they need him and where he needs to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Rudder, they didn't do too hot last season, but again, I think they were still a very young team, and with Jaquise Martin as well as Brandon Cooks at wide receiver, they're probably poised for the come up this season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, do we even have to talk about him? We've already talked about him 1,000 times. Franklin running back, Jaden Jackson. Let's talk about the running back factory that is the Franklin Lions, and like I said, I got to start off this just by naming off his stats. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but here's his exact stats from last season. And again, as a sophomore, these are the numbers that he was able to put up. 238 carries for 2,212 yards and 32 touchdowns.
Light work.
That's light work. And of course, led the Lions to their second consecutive state title. He's got a great frame, staying at 5'11", 210 pounds. And again, he's only going to be a junior this year. So will he keep growing? I don't know. That's a good frame for a running back, though, I'd say. He's just a hard-nosed back who isn't afraid to just barrel through the line to create really his own path and his own holes for himself, which is really the style of play that Franklin likes to play. Down there, they like to play that slot T, and they take a lot of pride in their running game. And man, he's got a mean stiff arm too.
Oh,
there were a couple of highlights he had on his huddle where he just stiff-armed the heck out of these defenders, and they had no chance.
Yeah, I mean, he is absolutely going to have a bigger frame than Bryson Washington by the time it gets done. I mean, I honestly think that he already did last year, but the thing that just impressed me so much about him was with that larger frame, with the more defined muscle tone and all of that, he was still able to be just as elusive as Bryson Washington was when it came to the cuts. I mean,
He's
it was
quick on his feet. Like, his agility is just, it's jarring.
Yeah, and I think he welcomes contact too, which is obviously to a certain degree always really good to see. But I was genuinely just impressed with how elusive he was off the cuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's super impressive. Like, I loved watching his huddle because he's one of those running backs that he's just not afraid to get his hands dirty.
No, not at all.
He'll
block for people too.
He'll block for
people. And that's
yeah.
intangible stuff as a coach. Like, if you're looking at that as a coach and you see your sophomore running back blocking for your senior who is equally as talented,
right?
That's, I mean, you can't teach that.
No, you can't. All right, let's round it all out in the 2A ranks with Centerville offensive lineman James Wright. He's a 2A preseason All-State offensive lineman, and man, there's a reason why. He stands at 6'6", 315 pounds.
That's
in the 2A ranks.
Big boy.
You don't see that combination of height and weight anywhere in the 2A ranks. I mean, anywhere, probably. I mean, that's probably a normal offensive lineman frame when you're looking
for
at the
college.
Correct, that too, but 2A.
I wouldn't even say that 6'6", 315 is normal for 6A. Like, I would say that there is
it's more common,
good percentage, but that's not normal. Like, none of that is normal.
No, not.
I guarantee you, they were watching him walk into kindergarten as like this 5'5", 140-pound kid and going, Mama, keep feeding him.
Coach coming in like, yep,
that's the one.
I need that 5 meals a day.
Get that calorie count up, boy.
Man, and he really is. He just looks like a man amongst boys out there. Because again, that frame and that is just not common in that rank. But not only is he big, but he's an athlete too. He sticks with his blocks, creating big gaps in the line for his running back. He's just a special player for this Centerville team, and like you said, made it 4 rounds deep in the playoffs. And yes, they were pretty young, maybe a year early last year, but this guy returns. They got great skill players on the offensive side of the ball. They're poised for a really, really special year, I think, this Centerville team, and I can't praise that enough. And it's going to be led by this offensive lineman right here, James Wright.
56 pancakes last year. Light work. And that's the thing is he runs a 5.9 40, so speed not the name of the game, but in the 2A ranks, he just needs to be a wall. If he was playing at a higher classification, he might need to work on trimming down a little bit and getting that speed a little bit better. But shoot, man, just go up there and block 4 kids at once. The first highlight on his huddle tape was, it looked like remember that scene from The Blind Side where Michael Orr just takes that kid to the bus? Where were you taking him, Michael?
I was taking him to the bus.
Oh, it was time for him to go home.
That's exactly what it looks like. And I'm like, man, that's how you start off your huddle tape.
Yeah.
with that video right there. But yeah, he's a special player, and he's going to lead that team pretty far this year. So there you go. Players to watch in the Brazos Valley region. Man, I love doing that. I really do. I like watching tape. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Cruton Power Hour with Malpal.
Sure, with Mallory.
You said it, not me.
Just kidding. No, incorrect. But yep, there you go. Players to watch in the Brazos Valley region.